for Global Mill Week. We have a couple of sections hosting this presentation today, and I'm going to invite each of the chairs from the school library section and the information literacy section to welcome us and start off our time together today. So with that, Ning Zhou from the information literacy section, I invite you to say a few words.
Hello, my colleagues. Welcome to our webinar. As the chair of the IFLA Information Literacy section, I'm thrilled to have you join us today. In an age flooded with information, media literacy and information literacy are our beacon of truth and empowerment. So together we'll explore ways to navigate complex media landscapes, promote critical thinking, and foster informed communities worldwide. I invite you to engage actively and share your insights, as your participation is key to advancing our collective mission. Thank you for being here, and let's embark on this journey together. Without further ado, I'd like Elizabeth to introduce other officers from the organizing committee, and then I will put the link to our mission. I'm sorry? Okay. To save time, I'm going to put the link to our website so you can learn more about our mission and then some of the projects we're working on. Thank you so much.
And along with Ning in the information literacy section, who's joining us today is Chao Wang and Valerie Glass, the information coordinator and secretary for the information literacy section. So welcome. Good morning to everyone. And my time, good evening to you all who are further along in the times today. And with that, I'm going to ask Louisa Marcotte to give a brief introduction to the school library section from the school library section this morning.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to share this amazing experience with the information literacy section. It's a long-standing tradition for us to organize initiatives, and to underline how fruitful is this collaboration, I would like to say just a few words regarding previous webinars that inspired further steps. For instance, a joint publication on digital literacy that will be published at the end of the year, or is an activity of the school library section, an incoming book on AI. So the privilege to share information and experiences is really amazing, and I hope that our fruitful collaboration will go on. There are many opportunities across IFLA and library associations, so please stay in touch. A further webinar will be delivered on October the 30th with IFLA experts, Anna Maria Tamaro and Jesus Lau, and also one of our speakers today. So let's keep in touch, and thank you so much to our mentor, Professor Elizabeth Burns, for chairing this webinar this year, and to the information coordinator of the school library section, Valerie Birdford. Thank you so much to all to our attendees who graciously accepted our invitation. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for your welcoming remarks. We have 3 fantastic presentations this webinar series. We are going to present a pre-recorded presentation of each of the speakers, and then invite lots of time at the end for question and answer. Our presenters are here with us this morning, or this today. So I would like to do a quick overview of our presenters, and then we'll move right into the presentations themselves. Damiano Oro is with us from the Information Literacy Observatory of the Italian Library Association. This will be our first presentation today. Again, we'll hold question and answer until the end of the all three presentations. But if you have questions as you're listening to the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat. I will moderate a question and answer session at the end. So I'll go back and pick up any questions that you may have thought of as the presenters were starting. Our second presenter will be Dr. Rebecca Morris from the USA. Dr. Morris is a school library educator in Pennsylvania here in the United States, and she'll be our second presenter. And then our final presentation today will be Leen Dianis from Belgium, presenting some research findings. Leen is a full professor in the Department of Communication Science at KU Leuven in Belgium. And so we'll hear that presentation at the end. And again, we'll then commence with question and answer. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and begin our presentations. The first one, as I said, was Damiano Oro. And I'll go ahead and get this started for you.
Thank you for invitation to webinar on the new digital frontiers of information. Media and information literacy for public interest, information through libraries. My name is Damiano Oro. I work at University of Rome Tor Vergata at the Vilfredo Pareto Library since 1999 as librarian. My work is academic research assistance for students, for researchers and teachers through databases, journals and books, and support for access to bibliographic search engines. I work in a library in Rome at the School of Business. AI is very important in creating new ways to working in the library, in research, in cataloging, in literacy and engagement. We need to train for AI skills in our universities and our libraries to engage citizens against fake content generated by AI. As a librarian trainer, speaking to students and researchers about AI general literacy, we find ourselves at a fascinating crossroads between technology and education and ethics. Libraries are not just curators of information, but facilitators of information responsible and innovative use of emerging technology. For researchers, it's crucial to understand that using AI tools to generate contents requires transparency, proper disclosures of AI assistants, and maintaining rigorous standards of citation and originality remain fundamental to academic integrity. As we move forward, the role of libraries and librarians will only grow in importance. By providing access to open resources, promoting information and algorithmic literacy, and supporting the ethical use of AI tools, libraries can ensure that students and researchers are well prepared to navigate the complexity of the digital age. Our responsibility is to build a foundation of understanding, critical thinking, and ethical practice, ensuring that AI becomes a tool for an answer rather than an obstacle to academic integrity. In our library, we have to ask the user if they are able to evaluate contents or not. The flow chart by UNESCO begins with a simple question. Does it matter if the output is true? This is an essential first step because it sets the context for the level of security and responsibility users need to take when employing AI in their tasks. This decision-making process can be linked to concept of algorithm literacy, which emphasize understanding the limitations and potentials of algorithms. Generative AI is powerful, but it doesn't know in the traditional sense. It generates responses based on statistical relationship rather than a deep understanding of the subject matter. For example, ChatGPT may generate a plausibly sounding but factually incorrect information due to biases in the data where it's trained or gaps in knowledge. However, when accuracy and truth matter, as is often the case in academic work or research, users are prompted to assess their own expertise. If you don't have the expertise to verify the output accuracy, then the flowchart indicates the use in ChatGPT will be unsafe.
E non sento parlare però.
A me non mi interessa.
Today, promoting AI generative literacy among citizens is not just about teaching technical skill. It's about fostering a critical, ethical, and creative engagement with AI. Library as trusted community hubs have a unique role in guiding citizens through the complexity of AI, ensuring that they can use these tools responsibly, creatively, and truthfully in their personal and professional lives. Today, we need to plan introductory workshop helping citizens gain a solid understanding of AI generative tools. The sessions could concept like what AI is, how AI generative models work, and where this technology appear in daily life. We need to encourage citizens to engage critical with AI generated contents, whether it is text or images or data analysis. Now, citizens need to understand the implication of using AI tools, particularly around issues such as data privacy, bias, and ownership of AI-generated contents. Through curated resources, guides, and ongoing training, libraries
Disattiva audio.
support this integration of AI and information literacy.
Va buono.
Citizens can directly interact with AI by creating their own contents, whether it is generating text using ChatGPT or creating digital art with AI tools like Midjourney or DALL-E. A workshop tailored to content creators could focus on best practices for integrating AI tools into their workflow while maintaining transparency and authenticity. Through interactive and age-appropriate workshop, libraries can teach youth the basic of AI while also promoting critical thinking skills. We can set up AI labs or make spaces where citizens can experiment with AI tools under the guidance of librarians and experts. This collaborative environment allows peer-to-peer learning and foster community engagement around AI topics. In the last year, we've seen misinformation like Cambridge Analytica scandal, the Brexit voting, the deep fake, the coronavirus pandemic misinformation, and now we can have synthetic misinformation by contents generated by chats. AI generative literacy is essential to teach students and researchers how to distinguish between reliable sources of information and AI generated misinformation. This involves recognizing patterns in misinformation, understanding how AI model generate content, and learning how to cross-check facts. High literacy goes behind knowing how AI works. It requires citizens to critically evaluate the information that AI system produce. We can go back many years to the infographic how to spot fake news. It can serve as a critical framework for evaluating AI-generated content. Let's break down how each of these steps can be applied when working with AI-generated information. We can suggest to our user to check the author, to check the date, check biases, consider sources, read behind, supporting the sources, check if it is a joke, or ask to experts if necessary. Language models such as ChatGPT or Gemini, and others have safety problem for citizens. The data chart highlights several potential risks occurring when using AI tools like morality, dangerous behavior, self-harm, privacy violation, information misinterpretation, religion believers, discrimination stereotypes, controversial topics, political, illegal activities, and crime. We can see the more safe answers in discrimination and information misinterpretation and in self-harm, but we have the low level for safety in religion believers, privacy violation, in dangerous behavior. In our library, we can use this model by Dury Long. She's assistant professor. This is a model to create an training course for our user about artificial intelligence literacy. It offers a comprehensive guide to understanding how AI works, what it can do, and how people perceive it. As a librarian trainer, I will use this framework to support students, researchers, and broader community in the developing of AI generative literacy, which is essential for navigating the rapidity evolving in the digital landscape. For sources by IFLA, I suggest these two open books. The first is the IFLA Statement on Libraries and Artificial Intelligence, published on 2020, and it talks about how to use artificial intelligence in our libraries. The second is IFLA Internet Manifesto, updated this summer in the new vision of building better digital access with libraries. And it talks also about artificial intelligence generative literacy. UNESCO published many books and many scientific context for artificial intelligence literacy. And the first is for academic and search environment. Is guidance for generative AI integration and research, and is published on August 2023, and is an open book to use artificial intelligence contents and tools for research. The second is for the schools, published on April 2023. The publication is ChatGPT, Artificial Intelligence and Higher Education. What do the higher education institution need to know? It's very good for schools to use ChatGPT or other chatbot in education, in learning, and for students. The third is for citizens. It's published this summer. The publication User Empowerment Through Media and Information Literacy, Responses to Evolution of Generative Artificial Intelligence. It is very good to use artificial intelligence in daily life for all citizens outside the search field. All contents about artificial intelligence literacy that I use for librarians in Italy is shared here. It is a blog named the Biblioskill. It's open to all, and here you can find infographic about misinformation, infographic about use of AI generative tools. There are tutorials, there are many videos and slides about libraries that use artificial intelligence tools. This blog is shared on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And here you can find also links about these issues in All My Links. All My Links is a social network where anyone can share links or contents with other people. Now I'm available for any question and for any contents, also by Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. And thank you all for your attention. Thank you to all people that can use these contents and can support these librarians issues.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was wonderful to hear all about your different resources that are available. And I know a couple of questions for later, but we will move on briefly now to our next presenter, Dr. Rebecca Morris, and she will share her presentation as well.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Morris, and I'm pleased to be here with you today for Global MIL Week, the New Digital Frontiers of Information. I am pleased to be joining you from the University of Pittsburgh, School of Computing and Information in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the United States. Let's begin. I'll share my screen with you here. A little bit of background about me. I teach in an MLIS program and Masters of Library and Information Science program. I have a background myself as a school librarian and classroom teacher, and that teaching perspective is what I'm going to bring to you today. I'm also a scholar and author in library and information science, focusing in particular on school libraries and library services for children and young people. These are some of the publications that I have authored, and my most recent publication is the book, The School Librarian's Compass, Stories to Help You Find Your Way. I like stories, and I hope that I can share with you today some example stories in this topic. So I'm going to talk to you today about LIS instruction, or Library and Information Science instruction, but hopefully there are some takeaways whether you are faculty teaching in an LIS program, a librarian working with patrons, learning about ways to use generative AI for accessibility and centering the students in our learning and our teaching. I'm going to talk to you about making research-informed adjustments to the things that we do to prepare learning materials to make them more accessible, maybe a little softer and kinder, and more time efficient in terms of preparation. So the title reflects those topics: Be Kind and Save Time, Exploring Generative AI for Creating Accessible, Student-Centered Learning Materials. Today, I'll talk about generative AI as applied to some of these pedagogies for accessibility and student-centeredness. And to do that, I'll share with you a few examples from my courses that I teach, including some examples in syllabus language and tone, a lecture outline, and some assignment rubrics. When we join together for the webinar, we'll have an opportunity to talk more. And in my talk here, I have a few questions that maybe will start that thinking. In order to begin, I'd like to acknowledge my colleague at the University of Pittsburgh, Dr. Lindsay Onyefer, who wrote in one of our university publications about the potential to use generative AI applications like, for example, ChatGPT, to make learning more accessible. When I read this article, I contacted her and said, I'd like to try some of these strategies in my classes and share this work with my colleagues. And so I want to acknowledge and demonstrate my appreciation for her thinking and her contributions, which inspired and guided this work. So to begin, let's think a little bit. What are some strategies that you use to make instruction and information more accessible to your students if you are a teacher, or perhaps to your patrons if you are a librarian? Well, perhaps you use some strategies based on universal design for learning. Even if you don't know it as this set of principles, you may recognize some of these examples. We call this UDL for short, meaning strategies that are not only designed for one particular individual's needs or accommodations, but strategies that help support all kinds of learning opportunities for all kinds of learners and people. Some of the ways that we might apply this set of strategies are listed in the bold here. The first is multiple means of representation. That is, just as it sounds, representing the content in different formats and modalities. So perhaps lecture or presentation outlines, pictures, graphic organizers, and diagrams, go-to lists to help make listening to or reading a document more understandable, maybe with definitions, guiding principles, acronym, frequently used code or symbols, or perhaps short videos or long videos that have transcripts or closed captioning. Multiple means of engagement. This means how are the learners engaging with or accessing, thinking about, responding to, working through, or experimenting with our content? Well, perhaps unpacking goals of learning and applying these to our learners' context and environments. If they're working professionals, let's apply that to their settings. If they're students with particular interests, perhaps sports or hobbies, let's make those connections. We provide prompt feedback, not only on the end product, but on the steps along the way, the process, the reflection. We acknowledge risk-taking. Student choice is another way of providing different ways to engage with content. Might we select the direction of our inquiry? Might we show how we have learned in different ways through that process or through the evidence? Perhaps we don't all need to share what we learned in the same format and in the same box. Finally, multiple means of action and expression. Some of these can connect in different ways. I think the middle column and the last column do have some similarities, but we might provide through multiple means of action and expression, hands-on learning, some options to work alone, in groups, in pairs, self-assessment. How am I doing? What criteria am I working toward? Is there a rubric, a checklist? Can I look at a model or an example? Can we see this in a different context or a different case? And then perhaps guides for note-taking. As I'm reading, what should I be looking for? How can I organize this big, long list of information into something that's more digestible and memorable to me. These are all wonderful ways to help learners and patrons make information personalized, relevant, and useful. We might also direct our work in preparation for teaching toward more student-centered tone, friendliness, quick and useful feedback, flexible deadlines, clear instructions. These kinds of adjustments maybe individually matter a little bit, but taken into all of the different dimensions of preparation for teaching or presenting or communicating can really make a difference in making a person feel seen, valued, and respected as a partner or participant in a teaching and learning process. However, despite all of the good that might come from such work and preparation, it is indeed work and preparation to make these different kinds of adjustments, to create the protocols, the instruments, the guides. Why don't we do this all the time? It's the time. It is challenging to integrate content updates as well as these pedagogical shifts. The timing and cycle of the academic year sometimes make a pace difficult to keep up. We may need our own professional development and training to learn what kinds of measures might we implement. We may be developing and teaching multiple courses, multiple sections, trying all of these different kinds of strategies. We're balancing lots of obligations, and for many more reasons. These kinds of opportunities to make our learning materials more accessible and more student-centered are out there. Perhaps we need some help. And this is where we may turn in select and intentional ways to generative AI tools. These are just a few examples going from the bottom: Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT, and Claude. To be clear, I don't have an affiliation or particular interest around these. The cases that I will share are for purposes of exploration and discussion. It's not comprehensive, and I myself am just starting to try and evaluate these. A helpful reminder as well is to use any generative AI tools in accordance with your organization's policies, including acceptable use of information and data privacy considerations. With that in mind, let's look at a few examples. This first example is set up by the idea that syllabi written in a friendly manner support positive student perceptions of a course and suggest warmth and friendliness of the instructor. This finding from Harnish and Bridges 2011. So what if instructors use generative AI to rework some of the language in a course document, such as a syllabus, to make it more friendly? Here are two examples, one dealing with class participation and one dealing with assignments. So here is my first example. With all of my examples, I set up the structure in this way. What's the goal? What's the tool? And what were the materials I was working with? So in this example, I have some original syllabus language on class participation. And I'll put this side by side with the ChatGPT version. So I'm asking my students here to be engaged, to be collaborative, willing to learn. I explained some understandings around excessive absences. I think it's okay. Could it be softened? Could it be more friendly? So I cut and paste the syllabus section into ChatGPT and prompted the GPT to rewrite according to criteria such as friendlier. Taking away this text box here, we see the original syllabus language and then a friendlier, warmer version. We hear phrases like, active engagement in our learning exercises and discussions is key to not only succeeding in this course, but also creating a vibrant and supportive learning environment. Sounds pretty good. Moving on to the second paragraph here, not reading verbatim. If you find yourself away from our online space for an extended period, it could affect your grade. So let's be sure to stay connected. Is it a little bit cheesy, to use a friendly term? Yeah, kinda. But it's also a document that is read, not spoken, and those intentions toward kindness can go a long way. Here's another example on assignment revisions. So in the lighter box, we see here's how to resubmit something that you already did for a better grade. The ChatGPT version. If you'd like to give an assignment another shot to improve your grade, you're welcome to. Just chat with me first to get the thumbs up. Could I have done this myself through editing and revision? Yes. It's a little creative here. It's a little more creative maybe than what I would have come up with. And it's kind of quick and efficient. Let's look at another example. The goal, create a lecture outline to support multiple means of representation. So whether that's an in-person lecture or a lecture that's recorded and shared later, having a transcript or outline to follow along can help students engage with that information in a different modality. Here I used Microsoft Copilot and the materials were my Zoom transcript. I recognize that I'm putting my intellectual property into this generative AI, and I do that with the knowingness that this is my decision. I wouldn't do this with student work, and that's a separate matter that I'll get into a little bit. So here's a screen capture of what I did. Please make an outline of this lecture transcript. So I pasted it in. It took a few iterations because of the character limit. And what I ended up with after a few times was an introduction, purpose, instructions for new students, a very nicely organized outline that saved me time. So I had my lecture and my organized slides and my notes. This simplified that into a format that I shared with my students so that they could follow along. Did I move some things around? Yeah, you can add or remove information, reorganize headings or bullet points, but that little bit of adjusting is much less time than building an outline for every lecture that I might give in a course. Finally, this last example is assignment rubrics. So the goal, construct a discussion rubric. Do I have these already? Yes, I do. But I have been using similar discussion rubrics in my classes for several years. The rubric, of course, is a chart showing different performance criteria for students to consider when they build or respond to an assignment prompt. We see a target level, an acceptable or unacceptable in the rubrics that I use, with some criteria as to what those look like. I thought this could use refreshing so that students and I can see what the expectations are and then look for those in participating in the assignment. I used Claude 3.5 Sonnet for this example, and the materials were the assignment instructions. So I prompted the AI to create a rubric according to my suggestions for criteria, which it did. But what it created, let me go back a slide, was this really long horizontal rubric that went right to left. I couldn't do anything with it. I couldn't put it into my learning management system. It didn't fit well on a page. So I made a remixed version, which had a format ready for copy and paste with numerical points removed. In the final version, I didn't want their point structure. I wanted to do it my own way. And it said, would you like to add a peer review? I said, yes, actually, I hadn't thought about that for a discussion post. So it added a criterion for peer review. What I landed on was this version on the right where it says responses to classmates under engagement, critical thinking, supportive and constructive feedback. This version I could use and adapt in my classes. It refreshed some content that I'd been using maybe for a little too long and provided something that students could use to check their work. These kinds of opportunities to infuse our course preparation and our teaching with a little bit of creativity, a little bit of kindness, and some time-saving measures are quite useful. Do we have to be careful in this process and in this effort? Yes, there are some questions that are raised here. How might you do this? Is this an area that you might be interested in trying, whether for teaching, whether for communication with patrons and staff, or perhaps in another element of your professional development? What concerns or questions bubble up? For instance, what are some issues related to policies or perhaps topics around ethics and privacy that are evident? As I mentioned, I will put my own lecture transcript. I wouldn't put, say, the recording of a student class discussion or a student assignment into an AI. at least without some kind of process of permissions in place. And even that I haven't done yet in my teaching. What guidance, discussions, and reflections might support future work in this area? I think this is a small but powerful adjustment that we can make with our students, with our teaching, and with our own professional growth. I'm curious to hear your questions and discussion. Please see the references here for some of the sources of information and inspiration. These were the tools that I used. Again, Anthropic's Claude 3.5, Microsoft Copilot, and OpenAI's ChatGPT. That was a March 2024 version. Thank you very much for watching and listening today. I look forward to our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Morris, for that engaging presentation on how we might start to implement some of these ideas in our work. And we will move on to our final recorded presentation. And I'm going to provide just a quick introduction to Lean. Lean is a full professor in the Department of Communication Sciences at KU Leuven, Belgium. She heads the Media Culture and Policy Lab and is a member of various research institutes, including the Leuven Center for the Study of Islam Culture and Society, the KU Leuven Digital Society Institute, and the KU Leuven Child and Youth Institute. She also serves on several councils, program committees, and holds network membership. She is a core participant in several well-known international cooperation projects such as Remedies and Y-Skills. She advised the Flemish government as well as the European Commission about the roles of governments in steering media literacy on ways to foster the development of online resilience and online coping strategies targeted at children at risk. So with that, she's going to share some of her research findings with us through her presentation. So welcome, Lean.
Okay, welcome everyone to my presentation on some of the results of Remedies, our Remedies project, and I gave it a title, Balancing Stakeholder Interests in Media Literacy and Digital Skills Intervention Types, a guide for researchers. So some key insights from Remedies, perhaps first of all, present the Remedies project. It's an acronym for Rethinking Media Literacy and Digital Skills. It is part of an EU Chance program, the first one, and it is led by a consortium of 7 academic partners from 6 European countries, each with their non-academic partners. And these people are all organizations, NGOs, sometimes ministries, bigger organizations that are working in the field of media literacy and digital skills. The project aims to develop evidence-based approaches, and evidence-based is a really important aspect there. So these approaches need then to foster and evaluate media literacy and digital skills for better life outcomes, be it identity-related, be it labor market related, and also to understand the impact of media literacy and digital skills interventions across different life domains. So that means that we're not only dealing with youth or dealing with adults in their active life, but also with older people. These are the Remedies partners. KU Leuven is leading, and we have a great consortium, not too big, not too small, with the LSE, Tartu University, Krakow University, Jyväskylä University, Helsinki, and the University of the Basque Country. What is our research strategy and what are objectives? So we try to come up with an innovative approach, identifying and quantifying key factors driving media literacy and digital skills from this lifelong perspective, come up with a synthesis of the evidence of the effectiveness of current media literacy and digital skills interventions. We did a systematic evidence review that is about to be published in Media and Communication. And we also want to improve the theoretical knowledge on intervention outcomes, enhance strategies with evidence, and also, this is important, with a focus on groups in disadvantaged, marginalized positions, so in some way at-risk situation. We want to develop evaluation instruments and validate them, and also produce evidence-based policy recommendations, and also a way that is customizable, an evaluation toolkit that is user-friendly. So first of all, we need to understand the target demographics, identify also effective intervention strategies, and also look at the barriers and the enablers of intervention implementation. We wrote a few reports on that. They're all available on Zenodo under the remedies headings. So we have an identification of what are possible barriers and what are possible enablers of interventions that we also got from our systematic evidence review of the last 10 years of media literacy and digital skills interventions literature. So we want to determine the circumstances under which these strategies yield positive outcomes. So the outcome is not just media literacy and digital skills, but media literacy and digital skills for instance, digital inclusion, for well-being, for a better, for instance, position on the labor market. The primary stakeholders are, for instance, disadvantaged youth, unemployed people, refugees, people with lower SES, and the caregivers of these people, and the educators that deal with these individuals or these groups. And people who have specific needs, for instance, parents, questions about supporting their children in guiding them through their digital interactions, or educators who also are looking for tools and training tools for digital literacy, and policymakers who want evidence for policy development. What is our methodology? Well, we define pre and post tests to assess 12 media literacy and digital skills interventions across our different countries. The pre-tests involve data on social demographics, on digital skills, on media literacy, and also on what the expected uses and outcomes are of these interventions. In the post-tests, we ask similar questions to identify the changes. Did the intervention lead to any change? And if so, what change? Is the change satisfactory, or is it below expectations or beyond expectations? The data collection challenges were quite numerous. We had to deal with low participant numbers in the groups that we just mentioned, and a high non-response rate, especially in the post-tests. There were also some language barriers, because we were dealing with people with a migration background, among others, for instance, and there was a lack of participant motivation after long sessions. So here you can see in visualization of the application scenario, for instance, of our pre-intervention performance tests or social demographics questions ABC before the intervention, and then up to a month after the intervention we had questions ABC that were part of the post-intervention. What are these A, B, C, and D questions? Well, A relates to questions on social demographics, on personal characteristics, for instance, in terms of self-confidence. B had to do with access, with media literacy, self-perceived media literacy levels, and digital skills and knowledge. C is about the use and the outcomes of the intervention, and the domains also. Is it about learning? Is the outcome well-being? Is the outcome social identity, financial proficiency, digitally, for instance, or is it professional? And then D deals with future use and outcomes, a bit like C, and perceived performance to cope with negative outcomes. So we wanted to know from our participants whether they felt more confident, for instance, after having participated in the interventions. Some of the key findings, we see that participants generally reported modest perceived gains in digital knowledge and skills. The parents, found that they were more knowledgeable and more confident in supporting their children online, but they still experience challenges in specific tasks. Elderly participants said that they had improved their digital skills after the intervention, but difficulties persisted in social media use and also, for instance, in evaluating online information, distinguishing misinformation from correct, adequate information. For the teachers, the in-service teachers, we saw significant improvements in digital navigation, at least that is what they reported. So it's self-reported data. And also in terms of their well-being and financial literacy, they thought that the intervention was useful. Challenges in navigating online environments were there, and recognizing misinformation persisted across our various demographics, young and old. The successful programs relied heavily on instructor engagement. So the instructor is key. The quality of the instructor, the experience of the instructor, the motivation of the instructor is very important. Also in helping the participants to overcome language barriers and overall literacy barriers. Effective sessions required also careful time management, breaks also to maintain people's attention, people's focus and engagement. So some of the key takeaways, there's still a great need to continuous refinement of media literacy and digital skills literacy, because of course we need to focus well, we need to cater for the needs of specific but also diverse target groups. To do that, we also need robust evaluation methods to measure the true intervention impact, to measure the true outcome of the intervention. We also need theoretical refinement to better understand intervention outcomes, and also to inform policy makers. Recommendations should be formulated in a clear and straightforward way, and we also, and that is the goal of remedies also, we also should come up with an evaluation toolkit with the metrics that can be used when the N is low or when the N is much higher, qualitative and quantitative methods in a useful and a user-friendly way. That is our goal, to support also perhaps the scalability and also the effectiveness of the media literacy and digital skills programs. In future and for future directions, I think it's important that we include larger, more controlled samples to address the current limitations that we experienced in all of the countries of the Remedies project, and that we also look into tailored interventions to continuously improve digital skills. It's a moving target. AI literacy is now, for instance, one of the foci. And also we need to foster inclusive digital environments to bridge the digital divide and promote a more digitally literate society. This is important for greater inclusion digitally and also for greater well-being. Some more concrete recommendations, perhaps, to align stakeholder interests with the goals of our project, the goals of the researchers. So the guiding questions here were, how can we better meet stakeholder needs in future media literacy and digital skills interventions? And what additional strategies could improve engagement and outcomes? So here, again, we need to deal with addressing diverse needs. And to do that in an adequate way, because every group has unique challenges. Parents, for instance, may need help guiding children in digital spaces, while educators require tools and training for media literacy. So we need to listen to our stakeholders. Important also is that we come up with better strategies for alignment between the research goals and the stakeholder interests. So involvement of stakeholders in co-creation events, co-creation workshops is key. Also in the data collection instruments that we go for and the questions that we ask. I think it's important to have this involvement from the stakeholders right from the beginning. We should also think about meaningful incentives like vouchers to get a better engagement and a better level of participation in the interventions. Regular feedback loops should be installed to adjust the strategies. So in other words, the stakeholders should be key. The stakeholder is the center of this whole experience, stakeholder-driven research data collection. That should be the goal. How can we think of this stakeholder-driven data collection? Well, we need to incorporate quantitative but also qualitative methods to complement the outcome measurement or the outcome evaluation. Co-creation is key. Co-creation of data collection instruments, for instance, for groups with specific needs. And also we could think of user-friendly data collection tools, apps which make use of some gamification, perhaps also bring in some printed materials, and also cater for people with multiple language backgrounds. So here the instructor is, of course, the experience of the instructor is key. In practical locations also, for instance, Solidarity neighborhood stores in Belgium were chosen, for instance, to make it as easy as possible to hop in and join an intervention. Some concrete examples from our partners, for instance, in Poland, they managed to have high engagement there through collaboration with established institutions such as the Federation of Universities of the Third Age and media education centers. And this proved to be a very strong partnership, which led to a successful promotion and adoption of media literacy and digital skills intervention. In Finland, our partners, for instance, managed to involve the Finnish Society on Media Education in the development of pre- and post-test surveys, and these allowed for a deeper understanding of intervention effectiveness and ensured that key local stakeholders were aligned with the goals of the research. Also in Estonia, they managed to engage local partners in reviewing and implementing expert recommendations based on our systematic evidence review. So context-specific adaptations are necessary in order to have a better result. Some more concrete examples, for instance, from our Belgian partners here. We did this co-creation workshop in Leuven. We collaborated with key stakeholders, also in permanent follow-up and in close collaboration. And we also, and this was a picture of the final workshop in which we presented the findings and we exchanged some views on how to improve the overall strategy of one of our stakeholders, for instance, to improve the interventions. So some considerations with regard to data analysis. We had, and we still have, ambitious goals, but we need to address the limitations due to low response rates, low sample sizes, and therefore a mix of quantitative and qualitative data is necessary for a more comprehensive, user-friendly, and useful understanding and really helping our stakeholders. The research climate, the overall research climate is also an important, given an important aspect to take into account. What are the funding bodies? Are we dealing with a ministry? Are we dealing with an NGO, a bigger one or a small one? What do the research councils think of, for instance, intervention programs and research about intervention programs in the field of media literacy and digital skills and how to support them. I hope this is also for you as researchers and perhaps also stakeholders, and in any case, people who are interested in media literacy and digital skills, an interesting moment to take some time to reflect on the projects that you are running or have run or are going to run in the future. How do you meet your stakeholder needs? Have they been there with you to think about the co-creation of the intervention to improve it, for instance, in the first place, and then are they also actively involved in the pre-test and the post-test questions? So what strategies have helped you to improve engagement and outcomes? So I would like to hear more in terms of feedback from you and from your experience. Thank you very much for this moment together, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at a later time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for our final presentation. At this point, we have just over 20 minutes to open up for question and answer. Again, my name is Dr. Elizabeth Burns. I am just going to moderate the questions. If somebody has a question they would like to use their microphone, please feel free to raise your hand in the reactions, and I'll go ahead and address you and invite you to ask your question. Or you certainly can ask a question through the chat box, and I'll be happy to read those aloud for our presenters. So each of our presenters is still with us here live, and we certainly invite your questions and your comments as reactions to their presentations. If nobody wants to start us off, I'll start with a question. So many of you mentioned frameworks that guide your practice or research. What can we do to further embed these ideas in some of our guiding documents? With AI being so new, the information manifesto and the school library manifesto, how can we start to think about these frameworks in addition or integrated into our guiding documents for our IFLA sections?
I'll
Rebecca?
start. I'll take a little bit of content from our last presenter's talk. I heard the word stakeholders and collaboration a lot, and I think that's part of the direction that we need to take. I am but one perspective, and I have professional experience, but certainly not in today's environment of using AI on the ground with students, with patrons. I use it with my graduate students, but what they are seeing is a separate set of circumstances and needs. I learned so much from talking with my students, both in how they are using these tools in their learning, but also in their professional practice. In my context and in many of my colleagues here in the US, we are teaching graduate learners who are currently teaching either in K-12 schools or other library environments, and connecting stakeholders across these different domains and areas of perspective, I think is really important. I have a note right here on my desk. I met with a student the other day and she told me, look at school AI and look at Classroom Companion. I wouldn't have known those kinds of needs and questions had she not told me that. So I think integrating these perspectives before we consider codifying anything in any document is probably my best starting point anyways. I don't know, what do others think?
Did either of our other, Lean?
Yeah, I think it's important to have these frameworks in the toolkit that we are about to release. I think it's important. What is the theory of change? What is the goal that you want to achieve? And decide together with the stakeholders, because I realized that the metrics that we were supposed to integrate in the toolkit, based on randomized control trials or experimental designs or pseudo experiments, that in reality, with the low participation and the low N, we have to move towards a much more qualitative framework in order to come up with some measurement of some effect, some impact. But it's really important to do pre and post tests and design these together with the stakeholders, because we really come from different worlds and we work in different worlds. And I realized it too when looking at the small NGOs, for instance, who barely have time to think about frameworks, theoretical frameworks, and questions to ask. The business models, if you can talk about business models that they work with, are so limited. That you're really talking about very small groups, and also groups with language barriers, language issues, and also literacy and numeracy issues, let alone digital literacy issues. So we're talking here groups that are not often presented and researched about in the literature. And hopefully in our toolkit, we'll both have some frameworks that they can work with and depart from, and also methods. And this will, and we are using AI actually on the process with the Estonian team. They are taking the lead in the toolkit preparation. They will use AI also for prompting questions that our stakeholders may have. And then that will be our guide that will help us writing or putting together really the pieces of the puzzle of that toolkit that hopefully will be user-friendly and very generic to be used by these organizations, and most of them are very small. It's not only ministries of education and culture, it's also very small NGOs who probably are helped with, and hopefully are helped with this toolkit. So we'll test it with them, and before we release it by let's say April 25.
Thank you. I do see that Ellen has a hand raised. Go ahead, Ellen, and verbally ask your question.
Yeah, hi. Hello to everyone. I have a question for Dr. Lean, and really for anyone else who works with a lot of students on digital information literacy. It's more about motivation. It's a broader question about motivation, my question, but I think AI has kind of made this I guess a stronger issue. Given that most kind of media and literacy skills are really quite kind of easy to learn, they're not difficult or complex in that sense. I find that there's a kind of a low level of traction with students. So they're essentially quite easy to learn, and the usefulness is quite obvious. So I'm kind of wondering, has anybody who works a lot with students or has collected data like Dr. Lean has, do you have any idea why we get such a low level of traction with these obviously useful skills? Any insights?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I didn't work with my students on media literacy and digital literacy. Actually, I worked with my students as co-researchers on these interventions with needs, with unemployed people, with seniors, etc. So there we try to come up with a different dimensional framework. You have the technical skills, but you have also the communicative skills and the critical aspects, the critical dimensions of literacy, and the creative creative dimensions of literacy. And what we see also with 15-year-olds and 18-year-olds, you know, younger students and the ones I normally see here at university and undergrad and graduates, they lack critical skills, and they also lack very often communicative skills to go to a person they trust to help them. And really the worst case scenario is to cope alone with bad experiences that people may have due to online exposure. So we really try to have in these interventions these different dimensions. So there's the technical dimension, the how do you do this and how do you push this button, etc. But then what does it mean? What is the meaning? What is the critical dimension of what you're doing and what others can do to you, mis and disinformation. These are the lowest skills, and that we saw in Y Skills, our Horizon 2020 project, and we saw that also in EU Kids among 12 to 17-year-olds in Europe. So there is a definite lack, and that lack, different dimensions of it, we saw with seniors, we saw among our groups with an immigration background, and parents also who lack the confidence and self-efficacy in being a digital mediator with their kids, etc. So there are a lot of gaps that need to be filled, and it's a moving target, of course. Yeah. So, but I think with this four-dimensional approach, we can also tackle AI literacy.
Did other presenters have anything they wanted to contribute or share? Oh, sorry, Damiano, were you opening your mic? Okay.
So I think as a librarian in Italy, I think that we have to promote AI generative literacy among citizens, not just about teaching technical skills, but fostering a critical, ethical, and creative engagement with AI. So in Italy, we build a chatbot based on different platforms you can see in chat, and we try to create a virtual assistant for open access, open data, and open science. This is a beta test, and we try to engage citizens, students, teachers, researchers through this kind of tool based on a generative AI. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question, Lean, for you in the chat. Actually, two people wonder. Did you co-create your interventions with the stakeholders, and could you perhaps give an example of the intervention and how that was adopted along with the stakeholders, if that is the case?
No, the interventions were there, and we tried to come up with some improvements. For instance, to have two meetings rather than one, because we know, for instance, that a longer intervention has better effects than a unique or a single intervention. So we try to, together with them, to improve. And when the improvement was negotiated and was accepted, that was the version that we put to the test. So we work with Child Focus and with the Association of Families, for instance, in Belgium, but in Poland they work with Ministry of Education and with seniors. So together with the intermediaries who were catering for these groups, we came up with rather small interventions, doable interventions, and that was then the version that we tested, yes. So everything, all the 12, so it's 6 countries and 2 interventions in each country, and the description, the report can be found on the Remedis site, but also on Remedis at Zenodo. So the website is open access, and you can find more in detail the different interventions that we looked into. And actually, it's still ongoing, so we'll have more. There will be more output. So you're very welcome to follow us or to give me to send me an email or get in touch.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question that they want to ask? I have something that kind of threaded through each of your presentations. You talked about the fact that we really need to best educate our instructors. What type of professional development might be available in your areas to assist those that are now starting their journey with AI and want to professionally develop so that they can impart these strategies with their stakeholders, be they students or other users in the community? How are we going to inform our instructors better?
One is a co-learning environment at my school. I actually work alongside computer scientists who are developing large language models and AI. However, even though their expertise is deep in those dimensions, we're all new at this interface of more user accessible AI and GPTs, chatbots, from the perspective of our students, undergraduates, graduate students, and then many of us connect with K-12 learners, children. And so a community of practice among faculty has allowed us to ask questions together. We've invited speakers to come virtually, and we've had a nice variety. We've had speakers talk about academic integrity policies. We've talked about creativity and visual literacy. We've discussed search and information retrieval, a lot of different dimensions that connect both to content that we're teaching and exploring, but also practice and pedagogy. That last year was our first year for the community of practice. And I understand that there's another kind of parallel community in my university among the librarians. It seems as though these groups must interface at some point, but for now, that's one of the ways that we're connecting. And it also allows us to bring in, we have a lot of different areas of expertise and curiosity. I am a librarian, I'm a teacher, so I connect in a different way to this topic than, say, my colleagues in information science. So when we see a speaker or hear a question, we bring it to the community of practice and we can unpack it there together.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on how we might best prepare our instructors? Any final questions? We have probably time for one additional question. Okay, I see none, I hear none. So with that, I appreciate all of the time and the expertise that each of our presenters has shared. I do want to remind all of you that are here as attendees that you can receive a certificate for your attendance, and there's been a link posted in the chat a couple of times. So please request that if attendance is something you would like to record. Additionally, when you registered, each of the presenters provided a list of resources for their readings, other explorations that might be of interest to you. So I invite you to take a look at those resources, read through the materials, and continue your own professional journey into understanding the world of AI. This recording was recorded. We will post it, and help me, Valerie, my information coordinator for the school library section. Will it be posted? Where will people be able to find the recording?
I will make sure that it's posted on the event page. And so I'll put a link to that in the chat, but we'll also make sure that that information goes out to the folks who are registered when the link is ready.
Wonderful. So the recording for today will be available. Please use it. Please investigate it yourself. Please share it with others so that I might have an interest in exploring their own work in this area. So with that, I thank you all for spending a little bit of time with us. Thank you to all three of our presenters. Again, wonderful information, wonderful content. It's really a big bubbling question in many of our minds how we're going to start to use and embed this and what resources are available. Any final words before we log off? All right, well, with that, have a wonderful rest of your day or into the evening. Thank you all for joining.